Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California, as we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues going forward to find the best solution. And today, well, we've got some real solution seekers in the house here today, that's for sure. Barry Saywitz, who'd you bring with you?
Good morning, Paul. Thanks. We're back here again for some more Let's Talk Real Estate. I want to welcome our viewers and our listeners out there. Thanks for tuning in again. We have an exciting show today. I am excited to have the esteemed mayor of the city of Irvine, Farrah, on the show with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So before we get going, I want to do today's quick shout out to the University of Kansas men's basketball team and the University of South Carolina women's basketball team for winning the national championships. Congratulations to those two schools. We are now moving on to baseball this week, so if you're a sports fan, we're going to the next phase, and it's springtime, and we're going to the next sport. But to bring it back to real estate, I want to talk to you, Farrah, about the city of Irvine. Certainly, Irvine, one of the greatest stories, I think, in the entire country. And for you being a longtime resident here of Orange County and myself as well, really seen a tremendous amount of growth and diversification in the city. And I want to get your perspective in terms of where Irvine was, and then we'll bring it to sort of where you are today and then where you're headed in the future.
All right, sounds good.
So I want to rewind for a second because you've been here since the early 2000s. I moved here in 1989, and it used to be a stopping point for me driving from San Diego to L.A. I'd use the restroom and see the orange groves. And today, with the Spectrum and the Great Park and all the neighborhoods and everything else, it really is a very diverse and dynamic city. And unlike other cities in Orange County, you really have one of the highest growth and from a master planning standpoint, really just a great success story. How do you attribute the city's success? I know early on, really much of it attributed to the Irvine Company, but so much more than that now, I think.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day when the city first got started, we were one of the very few master planned communities and have continued that way. And today what you're seeing is that master plan continuing to grow and expand throughout the city. And so when you have neighborhoods and areas that are designated for open space and parks and amenities for the community, that's something that people long for. That's what they're looking for right now.
Yeah, and it's really when you look as a mother, a father, a family moving to the area, the schools, the parks, the open space really is probably the biggest draw. I mean, other than the beach.
Yeah, that's the story you hear every time. Anytime you hear of a new family moving in, that's what they'll talk about. They'll talk about the schools, the parks, the safety of the city, the way that it's built out, the different types of homes that are available, and that's all what brings people here to Irvine.
And really the residential aspect of the city, I mean, it continues to grow with new neighborhoods, new apartments, and other things. But I remember, I don't want to date myself, but I remember when there was only a handful of buildings in the Spectrum. Oh, yeah. And I started in commercial real estate, and they said, hey, why don't you go learn about all the buildings in the Spectrum and all the growth that's going on there? And I started in the morning, and I was done around lunchtime. And it just wasn't that much down there. And now I could kick myself for not buying property and doing more stuff there. But the diversification of the business in certainly Orange County as a whole, but in Irvine in particular, with really dynamic companies being located there, does the city really have to do anything to court them, or does it sort of sell itself?
It's a little bit of both, right? So I meet with delegations from all over that want to come and see what we have to offer. The most recent one we had, I believe it's the Japan Times, came by and stopped at my office to talk about the city and really do like a little a piece on why Japanese companies should move to Irvine or move their headquarters or satellite offices to Irvine, and really we talked about all the amenities that are available here. We talked about the new innovation office park that the Irvine company is building that is really scaled for new businesses to come and grow in. You can start off small and then grow as you need to. There's different varieties available. And again, when you talk about that diversification, I think that started like 50 years ago when we first developed, when we started with our residential. You had your single family homes, your townhomes, your apartments. And you see that in the business side as well. You see the small business, you see the large businesses, the corporations, the headquarters, and really that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, and I think that's really a selling point that the Irvine company uses, and for the city as well, is that you can start here, you can stay here, you can grow here, and there's another place for you. You can get something bigger or different as you need it. What I've always found is from the business side of things, and then we'll come back to the residential. But on the business side of things, the dynamics of the different companies, right? I mean, you've got
Yes.
automotive makers, you've got the tech side. I know you have a history yourself in the tech business. Really sort of dynamic of going and meeting with companies. When we go and meet with them ourselves for our business, I'm always excited to see the new and cool things that people are working on, in addition to the medical and the healthcare.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, med tech here, innovation companies, cybersecurity is big here, and now we've got our hospitals. So before, the city of Orange was always considered the medical hub. Right now, it looks like Irvine's going to be that medical hub. You've got Hoag, you've got Kaiser, both are expanding. UCI Medical Center is coming in, City of Hope is coming in, and that means a lot.
Yeah, and with that growth brings all of the other ancillary businesses that go along with
Absolutely.
those other hubs. I mean, whether it is the Spectrum Center, whether it is the Irvine Company's Innovation Center, or whether it is the hospital, to me, when you watch the growth in the area, businesses want to be around some of these other types of hubs, and then that fuels back to the housing side of things, right?
Because all those people need homes to live in.
Yes. So in terms of new and exciting projects of things within the city, of those that you can speak about, I know the UCI Medical Center, we're right here, and I watch it going up every day. It's really exciting, and I think it's going to be a great amenity to the community. Are there other things that the city is either looking at or working on that will benefit people going forward?
You know, I mean, I think one of the things that gets people excited is the coming back of Wild Rivers. So that's slated to open up later this June. And if you go by, you see the slides being put up. You see all the stuff happening there. That's exciting. But, you know, we were listed as one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the nation. And that's because we still have room to grow. And you're looking at areas in the Great Park and the Spectrum, maybe even a little bit in the Marketplace and the IBC, that you're going to see a lot more growth happening. And I think that's really because there is a demand for housing, and we're trying to deliver.
Yeah. And with the Great Park itself, I mean, for those people out there who aren't familiar with it, I mean, it is really just the end-all, catch-all of parks. You've got everything from the tennis to the basketball to the soccer and the baseball fields. It's really one-stop shopping if you want to take your family or go do something.
Oh my gosh, so it's much more, and it's going to be growing even more beyond the sports park, because right now we're looking at a botanical garden. We're looking at bringing the Flying Leathernecks Aviation Museum from Miramar to the Great Park. We're looking at an innovation center there. Pretend City will have their final destination of a museum there as well. So it's really going to be that place where people want to come to, whether it's for sports activities, whether it's for leisure, passive use, coming to the museums, learning something new. That's really what it's destined to become.
Yeah. And do you find that the people that are coming into Irvine are coming from other parts of Orange County, other parts of Southern California, other parts of the world? Is it all the above?
It's all the above.
Yeah.
You got a mixture of so many different folks from so many places. People that maybe lived in Irvine before, left, and want to come back, to people that are coming in from straight out from overseas.
Yeah.
And there's a quality that we offer with our not just our living quality of life, but then the services and programs that they are really attracted to.
And I keep using the word diversification because really I think that really describes the city the best to me. I mean, you have people from all different walks of life and different cultures, and if they do come here from overseas, they're looking for safety, they're looking for education, they're looking for nice weather, and so
Right.
I mean, you got it all. I guess let's talk about the education piece for a second. Certainly we're sitting here at UCI, which, again, if you rewind, it was only a handful of buildings, and now it really is one of the top universities in the country, and very difficult to get into. So, but also the schools within the city in terms of elementary and middle school and high schools, really top notch in terms of how they're rated, and the kind of services, whether it's sports or educational, that they deliver.
Right. I mean, you've got to give credit to our students because they are just excelling in any area that you put them in, whether it's the arts, whether it's technology, whether it's sports. They're out there doing their best.
And so, in terms of moving forward, the growth that the city has had, do you anticipate the same kind of growth or similar going forward? I mean, we've had COVID, things have slowed down, but I don't think so. I mean, I guess I'll ask the question.
No, they really didn't slow down too much. I mean, there was a little bit of a lull, but we're back on track and doing better than we were pre-pandemic. And so I think in the next few years, you're going to see a lot more when it comes to growth in housing and in commercial growth as well.
And in terms of the housing side of things, I mean, I know Irvine Company continues to try and build wherever they can, and then you have now certainly 5 Points in the Great Park, and you have other developers with infill types of things. I don't see, I'm curious your perspective, any slowdown in the housing side of things purely because you still have this dynamic of very limited supply and lots of demand.
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, but we have state requirements we have to meet. So we have our regional housing requirements that come down to every city, and we're asked to build a certain amount of units in an 8-year cycle. And for us, that number looks like 23,000 units, and that's a lot when you're looking at overall Orange County. I think we've got the biggest chunk, but I think that's because we have that room to grow and build in, and we're going to be developing those units within the next 8 years.
And how does safety, I guess, play into the overall perspective of the city? I know Irvine, I don't know if it still is or not, what you would know, was always rated one of the top safest cities.
I believe it's 17 years in a row now, the safest city in the nation.
Yeah, crazy. So I'm going to expect that that's not going to change going forward, and that also is one of the draws.
That's one of our highest priorities, is making sure that that our city is the safest, and people are able to enjoy themselves. There's going to be no change there.
Yeah, that's great. And then the other big thing that people ask is traffic, right? So, which is always a problem here in Southern California. It's a relative.
Is it a problem though?
Well, it's a relative term, right? But I think we've talked about it on other shows. It forces people between COVID and between traffic or construction or whatever you want to call it to want to work closer to where they live, to want to potentially work from home either part-time or some of the time. And I guess that gets back to the whole housing thing, right? If I'm going to be at home more, then I want a nicer place to live. I need a home office. I need more room. I need some kind of a yard or something. And
and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. As developers start designing the next batch of homes, I don't see why they wouldn't want to add in an office space. I think that's going to be a necessity moving forward.
Yeah, and the folks we've had on the show have talked about whether it's environmentally sound, whether it's solar, whether it's a common living space. I think those are all things going forward that people want to have. And so then I think that adds to the potential growth of the city because people want to locate near where they live. And a lot of times the executives of the company don't really want to drive. So they say, hey, if I live in Irvine, I want my office pretty close. And Irvine, to me, is really the business hub of Orange County. While I guess years ago it was maybe Santa Ana and Anaheim, and while those are still business hubs for those areas of the county, really, if you come down to the airport area south, it's Irvine.
It is, and then we're seeing a lot more when it comes to larger corporations, larger businesses wanting to shift their headquarters to Irvine. Most recently, last year, we had Bandai Namco close their offices, I think it's Santa Clara and El Segundo, and combine them in Irvine. And the ones that were in Santa Clara, when they announced this and said that they were moving to Irvine, 33% of their workforce were ready to move to Irvine.
I'm sure.
So
a little warmer, probably a little cheaper.
Exactly. You know that there is a demand, and it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah. And so from a master planning standpoint, I think Irvine has done one of the best jobs in terms of, because you have the land, so you're starting from scratch, right? So if you get to draw a picture on a piece of paper that's blank, I can make the roads wider, I can add in landscaping, I can make them pretty, as opposed to if you're in Los Angeles and you're just making do with what you got.
Exactly.
And so are those kinds of things in terms of the growth also in the master planning when you look to have whether it's a developer build or whether it's the city's master plan?
Absolutely. Like, our major arterials are already in place. And so all we have to work with are the neighborhood streets and in the streets leading into those neighborhoods and making sure that they're comparable to the rest of the villages that we have throughout the city. And so really it's bringing that larger amount of traffic and kind of dwindling it down as you get closer to your home so that you're experiencing that rush to more of a quiet side of your neighborhood entering into your home. So you kind of just relaxes you as you're entering anyway. So I think that's continuous throughout the city.
Yeah, and if you don't have to get on the freeway and you can take side streets, then that's even better.
That's even better. Yeah.
For sure. And so as far as the city's perspective as a whole, I know you're only one person, but we've talked to other cities about their perspective of pro-growth and pro-business. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, which is how does the city look at the growth and welcoming business, welcoming new people into the city?
It's pretty simple. You can have two types of cities. You can have a city that is growing, whether it's pro-business and pro-housing, or you can have a city that becomes stagnant. So anytime that you are experiencing the safety, the programs, the services that you enjoy, in order to keep those continuing as we're growing, you need that robust, commercial and residential growth. If you don't have that, then you become a stagnant city, and then pretty soon you'll see those same programs and services start to decline.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want to see here.
Well, and to me, it's really the business of running a city is a business.
Exactly.
And I think you have to look at it that way. I know some other cities don't, and they want it to stay as a bedroom community. But with the exponential growth in Orange County as a whole, it's just sort of hard to ignore that. And those that have embraced it, I think, have really flourished. And then you dovetail that back into the value of the real estate, right? So the better the city does, the more desirable it is, the more the real estate values go up.
Exactly.
And that really benefits everybody within the city.
Yeah, it does.
So let's talk housing for a second. I want to shift gears. Always difficult in this environment. Again, the supply-demand issue, prices for residential, prices for apartments continuing to go up, yet the supply that comes on the market gets gobbled up pretty darn quick.
It does. One of the things that we realized and we're actually working on right now is that when it comes to houses for sale, we are seeing a lot more investor-owned homes. And so for our new developments, what we put forward during our city council meeting was limiting that so that we open up the market for those that are actually going to live in those homes. A lot of times we hear from our community members that they are not able to compete with all cash offers. They're not able to compete with investors. And so really what we're doing is we're pushing out a whole group of people that would be investing in a home, building equity, and living in the city. And so we were trying to figure out creative ways to get them into those homes sooner than later.
Yeah, which to me is a smart move. There's no question, even in our own business of just trying to buy commercial property, somebody walks in with a cash offer, you get it run up. And then the second piece of that is then the guy's house or building or whatever you're talking about next door on the same street, they look at it and go, well, the last deal got done at X. I'm going to go X plus 3, right? And then if I only sell it at X plus 2, it was still a pretty good deal. And then there you go. That's how you get the run up in the prices. And so the investor side of things, there's no question people have desires. It's a desirable place, so they want to own it. Is there incentives or are there other things that you're looking at for developers in working with the developers, maybe for first-time home buyers, to try and get them in addition to just not the investor side of it?
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the proposals that came out was making sure that we were looking at multiple ways that we could get people into homes. And that's going to be working with developers. I'm not sure what's going to come out of that study, but I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to be able to offer because I think people need it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then the other side of it is the apartment side. So, no question, Irvine Company, huge portfolio, continuing to expand it. And I know that in years past they have built stuff that I'll call affordable housing. It's a relative term, but affordable for the area. Is there more of that from the city's perspective in terms of long-range planning to try and provide housing for different demographics.
Absolutely. I think we're looking at workforce housing, right? When we're looking at people getting into apartments with jobs that are you've got your teachers, you've got your police officers, people that are new into the job market and wanting to live in Irvine. Do we have homes for them as well? And so again, when you talked about diversifying, we've got to diversify in our housing as well, making sure we have the right amount of affordable homes, workforce housing, and market rate.
Yeah, otherwise the what I'll call the labor force in terms of whether it's waiters and bartenders and all the regular things that go into all the service businesses, those people have to drive from someplace
And then there you
else.
have your traffic issue.
Exactly. And so you have to solve, I think, that piece of providing affordable housing for many
Exactly.
reasons.
Right.
And the way that comes from is incentivizing, I think, the developer to be able to do it because the land is expensive by itself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, looking at our city, we practically double our population during work hours. And that's what from people commuting in to the city and then commuting out. And so that's the bulk of the traffic that you see throughout the day. But other than that, like, on the weekends and stuff, you don't see that type of traffic. And
Right.
so if we're able to get a majority of folks that actually work in Irvine to live in Irvine, then you got people that can bike to work, maybe take the bus to work, and you're reducing traffic at the same time.
Yeah. And so this year's an election year. You're up for election again, and we wish you all the best. And if I could vote for you, I would. But there's also a bunch of other elections as well on the state level, certainly the national level. And to me, Irvine is a pretty integral part of Orange County. And as far as the state, and it does get a lot of attention. How has Sacramento and what's going on there, if anything, affected what's happening in the city of Irvine in
Well,
terms
I
of
think,
funds and other things like that?
We've been pretty good on the funding side. For the first time, we were able to get some funding to complete our Jeffrey Open Space Trail. We were able to get about $16 million to complete that Mountains to Sea Trail. At the same time, we got about $1 million to upgrade Bomber Canyon. So we've been seeing a lot more of that going on. The hard part is, the housing regulation that's coming down from Sacramento, kind of limiting our master planning. And that's something that we've been working with them on a continuous basis. But one of the new things that has happened this year is, and a little bit of last year, is that we really developed a strong relationship with our federal government, which we hadn't before. And so with that, we've had, two of our secretaries, federal secretaries, visit Irvine. We had the Secretary of Labor visit Irvine, and most recently, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, to talk about all the mental health programs that we're offering to our residents and the community. And so I think that's really important, is we do a lot of great things, but before we weren't really being recognized because we weren't showing them off.
Yeah.
And so now it's very important for me when I'm out there to really highlight what Irvine is all about, that it's just not just talk. You've got to come and see the substantive efforts we're putting into our community, and that's why we're wonderful.
Yeah. No, and, from the state's perspective, I know there's a big push from the governor to repurpose, whether it's motels and other things, to provide low-income housing or even homeless housing. And that concept to me applies much better in a city like Los Angeles, where you have older properties.
I don't think we have motels in Irvine.
Right. So if you're building from new with your Lego blocks or whatever you're doing, it's hard to create that stuff from scratch.
But I'll tell you this, because we established the Irvine Community Land Trust back in 2012, we have the most affordable units throughout Orange County, throughout any city. We have a little over 5,000 units that we dedicate for homeless housing, veteran housing, housing for people with disabilities, and that's something you don't see in other cities. So we have really invested into making sure that we are not only getting the land that we need from developers into the land trust, but money that's needed there. Early this year, we were the first city to offer affordable homes for sale. So we had townhomes that were being sold at $400,000, $500,000 in Irvine.
I'm sure those went pretty quick.
They did. There were only 68, and we had 6,000 applicants.
Wow. Yeah, it's like getting into college or something.
Yeah.
Low percentage. But the fact of the matter is you're trying.
Yes.
And from the state's perspective, it really is a statewide issue that each city sort of has to deal with, on its own.
Yeah.
As far as the city's growth and what you and the city council look at doing from a bigger perspective, while a lot of that is master planning, is there push-pull of residential versus commercial versus ancillary types of things? Because you do get to sort of put stuff on the monopoly board and build it as you go, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, as we're looking at the next maybe 5 to 10 years, we're looking at redevelopment, especially in the Irvine Business Complex area, probably in the Spectrum area, kind of looking at mixed-use housing, seeing where we can bring in that combination of residential and commercial together, or retail, and really making it so that we're accomplishing the goals that we've set out for ourselves, and in providing not only the needed housing, but also the space for commercial and retail.
Yeah, and we've talked about it on other shows, and I see it every day going to work, where you have some of these older buildings in the Irvine Business Complex, which was sort of the original, for those who don't know, right, the original sort of business area
Right.
of Irvine, and now you have these older 70s type buildings that are lower ceiling height, and they're either knocking them down and going to industrial, because
Right.
that may be a highest and best use, or you're going to apartments because you just need more housing,
Right.
and you can go up there as well. And so it's exciting to see it happen. And then what I always liked, and I'm from the Midwest, and so I go back to the Midwest and everything sort of looks the same, just a little bit smaller to me, and not a lot of dynamics in terms of the growth. Here, I'll go away for the weekend, I come back and there's a new stoplight, or
Right.
there's, something went up.
And that's the fun part about being in the city at this time, is that there's so much going on.
Yeah, and really, I don't see the growth slowing down. I don't know if
I don't think it is.
No, I mean, the attractiveness of Orange County in general, the weather, the climate, the dynamics, like we've talked about, I think just continues to be a draw.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to see Orange County really grow exponentially in the next few years. And I think that's going to be, the blunt of it might be in Irvine, because we're still continuously building and growing.
Yeah, and I think the continued success that Irvine has, it also benefits the surrounding cities, and certainly the rest of South Orange County, because if I work in Irvine, if my business is located in Irvine and I can't find a place to live in Irvine, then maybe I got to go a little bit further out.
Right. Actually, it all comes together. It's you do what you can within your city, but then you have partners in other cities as well, so it benefits everyone.
So we just have a couple of minutes left. I guess one question I wanted to ask you was, so what keeps you up at night? And what is something that our viewers and listeners should look for the rest of 2022?
Wow, what keeps me up at night? I go to bed pretty sound and happy.
all is good, right? So
all is good. There's a lot going on in the city. There's a lot of movement and momentum, and I think it's all going to be good. I think there's some growing pains that people are feeling right now, but at the same time, they'll realize that at the end of the day, this growth is needed, and it's beneficial for the city. And in the future, I think we're going to see Irvine become that innovation hub of Southern California. Yeah. The way we're attracting new startups and the way we're attracting new businesses, I think this is really where people want to be.
And even the building we're sitting in, which is a hub, and the Beal Applied Innovation Center, right,
yeah.
to attract innovation. So
Exactly.
I think that will fuel the growth going forward.
Definitely.
Well, I think it's on the up and up for Irvine continued. I mean, I wish you and the city all continued success going forward, and best of luck in the upcoming election, and we'll hope to see you around and guiding the train for a few more years. I think that'd be great. For all of us here at OC Talk Radio, and for myself, I want to thank Paul and his whole crew. I want to thank our producer, Sophia. I want to thank all of our listeners and viewers out there for continuing to tune in. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company and managing partner of Barry Saywitz Properties. And what I've learned in my 30-plus years of doing this is you need to look at both sides of the equation so that you can come up with the best solutions. Hopefully, everyone has learned a little bit about the city of Irvine today, and I appreciate you, Mayor Khan, sharing your thoughts and insights.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. And we will see you next week here on Let's Talk Real Estate.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beal Applied Innovation Center.